This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Trash, trash. Ruo Xiang shouted at trash 3 times in a row and stepped on the huge-faced beast's head a few times before he finally vented the anger in his heart. The huge-faced beast did not react at all. It stood quietly in the sea and began to sink deeper. Ruo Xiang's face was extremely gloomy. Yunxiao's strength had almost crossed several unattainable chasms since the last battle. In the deep sea, where he could exert his power the most, with the high-level martial supreme commander, the Green Snapper, and the legend of the deep sea, they were unable to keep him here. Not only that, but the Green Snapper commander was also killed. More than half of the experts in the nearby sea area had died. What a disgrace. This was not only a humiliation, but also an even greater defeat after the battle at Red Moon City. Ruo Xiang's face was so twisted that it was frightening. He stood on the head of the huge-faced beast in a daze, and no one knew what he was thinking. A large number of marine race experts in the distance were hiding in fear. They didn't dare to approach this huge deep-sea beast. Guang Yi was also shocked. As a member of the royal family, he had naturally heard of these terrifying existences in the deep sea. It was like a legend, but he didn't expect to see it with his own eyes. He also didn't expect that Ruo Xiang could summon them and command them. His expression wasn't any better than Ruo Xiang's, but it was filled with even more jealousy, frenzied jealousy. He also understood that only the descendants of the true dragon could control these legends of the deep sea, but his bloodline power was far inferior to the other parties. After slightly calming down the fire of jealousy in his heart, Guang Yi turned into a ray of light and similarly flew up to the head of the huge-faced beast. He buried the fire of jealousy deep in his heart and said softly, "Cousin, what do we do now?" He hovered in the air above the huge-faced beast. He seemed to be afraid and did not dare to step on it. Ruo Xiang turned around, the coldness on his face making Guang Yi's heart twitch. A trace of fear actually spread in his heart. This had never happened before. Regroup the team and send 2 letters to the palace of Donghai and Lord Guangqing. Ruo Xiang immediately quieted down. That calmness made Guang Yi even more terrified. While he was afraid, an endless sense of shame and anger welled up in his heart. Why? Why do I have to feel afraid in front of him? Although he kept asking himself this, his fear didn't decrease at all. This made Guang Yi completely despair. After thinking for a while, Ruo Xiang calmly said, "Ask the palace of Donghai to send more men to me immediately. I want to launch an attack and take down Baicheng City within 7 days." What? Guang Yi's body trembled. We're not going to wait for the Eastern Sea United Front? Ruo Xiang looked at him coldly, and the chill made Guang Yi's body tremble. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. The chill spread uncontrollably in his body, and cold sweat burst out on his forehead. The United Front of East Ocean is your business, but killing Li Yunxiao is my business. After Ruo Xiang finished speaking, a light flashed in his hand. The huge-faced beast that had been standing still all this while turned around and slowly swam into the distance. As the huge-faced beast was too big, it took a while before it gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Guang Yi's body suddenly trembled violently, his face contorted. He seemed to have realized the insurmountable gap between the two of them. Suddenly, he felt like vomiting and his body trembled more and more violently. He was extremely upset. After rushing out of the sea, Yunxiao ran until his primordial energy was exhausted before he stopped. He directly landed on a hill, sat down cross-legged, and began to regulate his breathing. The deep-sea giant beast had shocked him greatly. If it wasn't for Mo Xiaochuan's sword that had created a crack on the surface, and his sword that had followed the crack, as well as the fact that he had mastered the thunder art, he would have died at the bottom of the sea. The black light spat out by the giant beast could actually compete with his world power. The grade of the power was even above the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens, which was extremely difficult for him to understand. It should be known that the power of the world was the creation of the world and formed its own rules. It was not even bound by the power of the heavenly martial realm, which was why it could devour everything and was invincible. The Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens was where the rules of this world were gathered. It could suppress all forces within this world. Unless it was a force like the power of the world that was not affected by the power of the world, it would be difficult to escape the suppression of the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens. What's going on? Those deep-sea giant beasts should have existed since ancient times, so it shouldn't be strange for them to have such powerful strength. However, only the 10 directions divine realm can break through the restraints of this world. Yunxiao frowned in confusion. Even if their ancestors had true spirits, it was impossible for them to break through the realm power after so many years. After failing to figure it out, Yunxiao was too lazy to think about it, so he began to meditate and recover. In the city lord's mansion in White Surge City, everyone was still sitting quietly. However, the members of the Battle Blade team were finding it increasingly difficult to remain calm. They looked at Liao Yongbing from time to time, as if they were trying to get some information. They knew that Liao Yongbing was the same as them and knew nothing, but they still hoped to get some information. After all, he was the calmest among them, other than Ruan Shichuan and the others. Ji Xingxiang was also restless. In the beginning, he was still able to chat and laugh with everyone, but later on, he could only walk back and forth in a depressed manner. City Lord, don't loiter around anymore, my eyes are already dazzled. Ruan Shichuan sat leisurely and sipped his tea. He couldn't help but laugh. The members of the Gon Wuqin unit also began to laugh, their faces filled with derision. The members of the Battle Blade team were furious, but they didn't dare to show their anger. Only Liao Yongbing remained calm. Ji Xingxiang didn't show Ruan Shichuan and the others any good attitude either. He turned to Liao Yongbing and said, Lord Yangbing, look at that Li Feiyang. Liao Yongbing made a silent gesture and said, don't worry. I don't really believe that he will be able to exterminate the Green Snapper tribe, but he will definitely not be in danger. Whether it was Yunxiao's strength or intelligence, he would never fall in such a place. Oh. I'm relieved to hear that. But how do you judge that Brother Feiyang won't be in danger? Liang Yuanji interjected. After all, the strength of the sea race is there for all to see. All the members of the Battle Blade team breathed a sigh of relief. Since Liao Yongbing had said so, Yunxiao should be safe. If that kid isn't dead, he must have found a place to hide outside the city. After a while, he'll come back pretending to be seriously injured and brag about how many Sea Tribe members he has killed. That explains why Li Feiyang is safe, Gon Wuqin sneered. Impudent. Liao Yangbing's face turned cold, and an unparalleled aura pressed over. He said coldly, who do you think you are to dare to speak so casually in front of me? He had long found these people to be an eyesore, so he could use this opportunity to punish them. Pfft. Liao Yangbing's aura was like a mountain, and he did not show any mercy. Gon Wuqin was sent flying as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Ruan Shichuan's expression changed drastically. He slammed the table and stood up angrily. Liao Yongbing, what do you mean by this? Liao Yongbing retracted his aura and regained his calm look. He smiled and sipped his tea. It's nothing. I'm just teaching these ignorant ants a lesson and show them some respect in front of us. Ruan Shichuan's face turned green with anger. Liao Yongbing was obviously beating the dog to show him, the owner, but he did not know how to refute it. He could only snort a few times and say, could Gon Wuqin be wrong? I think if Li Feiyang is not dead, he must be hiding. Oh? Liao Yongbing asked. Why was Li Feiyang hiding outside? I hope that Lord Shiquan can dispel everyone's doubts and improve everyone's IQ level. Ruan Shichuan thought for a long time before he mumbled, how would I know why he's hiding? Maybe he didn't hide, and it's highly possible that he was killed by the sea race when he went to the sea. Pa. Pa. Liao Yangbing clapped a few times and said expressionlessly, it would be great if Li Feiyang was as smart as you, my lord. Liao Yangbing, what do you mean? Ruan Shichuan was furious. Are you mocking me? He wouldn't dare to mock you, sir. I really envy your high IQ. A voice came from outside the city, and then a beam of light fell. It was Yunxiao, who had returned and manifested in the hall. Young Master Feiyang. Liao Yongbing and Li Yunxiao both cried out in surprise, and their faces were filled with joy. The members of the Battle Blade team were also overjoyed. Humph. What's the point of wasting everyone's time by hiding out and coming back? Ruan Shichuan sneered coldly. It's good that you're fine, Li Yunxiao said. He was sincerely grateful to Yunxiao and the others, but he was getting more and more disgusted with Ruan Shichuan and his gang. Your words are too harsh, Lord Shichuan, Yunxiao said. I wonder what divine power you have cultivated that you can see me hiding. He turned to look at Ruan Shichuan, his gaze turning cold. He was going to start with Ruan Shichuan. Ruan Shichuan didn't know that he was in trouble, so he still looked down on him and said in disdain, if you didn't hide, with your strength, would you be able to go to the sea and not die? Who are you trying to fool? Lord Shichuan's words have really chilled my heart, Yunxiao said leisurely. I can't believe the trust between people is so low. As a member of the United Front, I'm really disappointed. Humph. Ruan Shichuan's expression changed and he said coldly, Li Feiyang, don't put on an act in front of me. Pay attention to your status. If you say you went to the sea, you have to show evidence. Otherwise, it'll be a rebellion against your superior. I have to discipline you on behalf of someone. Yunxiao smiled and said, what if you have evidence? What can you say? Can I also teach a lesson to a certain person who made fun of me? Ruan Shichuan's face turned cold and he said coldly, don't you dare. How boring. They're completely unreasonable and only know how to use martial arts to suppress their own people. If you have the ability, go and fight the sea race. Yunxiao's face was full of sarcasm, and he could not hide his contempt. Ruan Shichuan was furious on the spot. After being rebuked by Yunxiao's words, he wanted to hit him, but he felt that it was inappropriate, so he said angrily, if you can produce evidence that you fought against the sea race, I'll let you hit me a few times. If you can't, you know the consequences. A cold gleam flickered across his face. Not to mention that he did not believe that Yunxiao could really survive the trip to the sea, even if he did, he would not have the courage to hit him. Really? Yunxiao's face turned cold, and there was a playful smile on his lips. Of course. Ruan Shichuan replied proudly. I'm a 6-star martial emperor. How can I trick a martial honor like you? Yunxiao nodded, then threw something to the ground and said, City Lord, take a look and see if this is the head of the Green Snapper Commander. What? Everyone was shocked for a moment and hurriedly came over to watch. Even Liao Yangbing was shocked. Since Yunxiao had said so, it must be true. He gave the calm young man a horrified look, and the shock in his heart was indescribable. How did he do it? Li Yunxiao was also extremely shocked. He grabbed the head and examined it a few times before exhaling heavily. His face was filled with unconcealed shock as he said, I can't tell if it's the Green Snapper Commander's head, but this head is indeed a high-level martial supreme. It should be true. Everyone sucked in a cold breath and looked at Yunxiao in horror. Ruan Shichuan's expression also changed as he said angrily, how is that possible? Li Yunxiao, you're trying to set me up with him. Li Yunxiang's expression was indifferent. He raised the head in front of Ruan Shichuan with both hands and said, My lord, you can see for yourself. You should be able to tell if it's a high-level martial supreme's head better than me. Ruan Shichuan stared at the broken head for a while, and his hands were covered in cold sweat. It was indeed the head of a high-level martial supreme. Lord Shichuan, Yunxiao said indifferently. What do you think? Ruan Shichuan's face turned pale. You. How did you do it? He asked. There must be something fishy about this. Yunxiao's face immediately darkened as he shouted, whether there's something fishy or not has something to do with your excellency. But you said you would let me beat you up, can you fulfill your promise now? Everyone had a strange expression on their faces as they looked at Ruan Shichuan. Ruan Shichuan's face turned pale. He couldn't take back what he had said in front of everyone, so he said coldly, If you have the ability, then come and fight me. I'll just stand here and not move. If you don't dare to make a move, don't say I've broken the contract. There was a fierce and violent look on his face as he stared at Yunxiao. He knew that Yunxiao would not have the courage to do so. Yunxiao nodded with a smile and said, as a 6 stars martial emperor, your protective origin energy is very powerful. I'm afraid that my fist will be shattered. May I use a weapon? Ruan Shichuan's face darkened and he said coldly, if you have the guts, you can do whatever you want. Without saying a word, Yunxiao took out his hammer and walked up to it. Liao Yongbing sighed and turned around. He had already expected what would happen next. It would be a terrible scene. This was the example of how one would not die if they did not seek death. Excitement also shone in the eyes of the members of the Battle Blade team as they waited for a good show. On the other hand, Gan Wuqin and the others had fierce looks on their faces, waiting to see how Yunxiao would be finished. Lord Shiquan, I'm sorry to offend you. Let's go, Yunxiao said indifferently as he raised the hammer and smashed it at the man's chest. A flash of lightning flashed across the hall, and a long arc was drawn behind the hammer. Ruan Shichuan's expression suddenly changed. The lightning was so strong that it instantly pierced through his protective energy. His cold expression instantly turned into fear, but it was too late. He spat out a word in shock, you're so silly. Bang. The hammer directly smashed into his chest, and a bolt of lightning passed through it, causing a huge black pit to appear on the ground behind him. The entire hall was almost shaken to the point of being annihilated, and chaos was everywhere. Ruan Shichuan's body was sent flying by the lightning, spinning in the air countless times before landing outside the hall. Apart from Liao Yangbing and the members of the Battle Blade team, everyone else's mouths were wide open. Their minds went blank, and they lost the ability to think. Ji Zhengxiang and Gan Wuqin rubbed their eyes as hard as they could, thinking that they were seeing things. However, after rubbing their eyes a few times, they still saw Ruan Shichuan lying on the ground in the distance. His body was pitch black and constantly emitting smoke. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. Mr. Feiyang, is he dead? Liao Yangbing asked softly. Ji Zhengxiang and Gan Wuqin were both shocked and trembled. A 6 stars martial sovereign was going to die under the attack of an 8 stars martial supreme? This was especially so for the members of Gan Wuqin's team. They suddenly seemed to understand something, as if they had offended someone they could not afford to offend. Their faces all paled as they looked at Gan Wuqin in despair, fear appearing on their faces. Although he's a bit of a scumbag, he's still quite strong, Yunxiao said with a smile. He'll be of use in the upcoming defense of the city. If he didn't have a use for it, he wouldn't have been able to live to Baichong's city, he added after a pause. The members of the Wuqin unit were all covered in cold sweat, their bodies trembling and their teeth chattering in fear. Yunxiao gave them a look and said, there's no need to be afraid. I don't have the time to argue with you. The situation in White Rush City is extremely grim. If everyone does their best to defend the city, we'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, we'll kill without mercy. Yes, yes. Gan Wuqin was quick-witted, and he immediately seized the opportunity. He hurriedly bowed and said, I'll do my best. Thank you, Lord Feiyang, for letting bygones be bygones. Even if we die, we must protect this city. As long as we live, the city will live. If the city dies, the city will die. Although you are greedy and narrow-minded, you are very smart, Yunxiao said. It's easy to talk to smart people. Gan Wuqin wiped the sweat off his forehead, nodded repeatedly, and stepped to the side. A huge rock was finally put down from his heart, his life was temporarily saved. Liao Yongbing frowned, Mr. Feiyang, are you saying that we have to stay and defend the city? Ji Zhengxiang suddenly looked overjoyed as he looked at Yunxiao with anticipation. Yes, Yunxiao said seriously. If we leave now, Whitewash City will definitely fall. I'm afraid that they'll break through this place and cause the entire Eastern Sea defense line to collapse. Liao Yangbing's face was full of worry. He was not a warrior of justice, and if it were not for the situation, he would not have been forced to fight on the front line. He said, but with just the few of us here. Of course we can't, Yunxiao said. But we have to wait until the eastern region sends someone here. Although I'm not a selfless person, this matter concerns the safety of my clan, so I have to do my best. Overjoyed, Li Yunxiao hurriedly bowed to Yunxiao and said gratefully, Xingxiang will never forget young Master Feiyang's great kindness. Yunxiao helped him up and said, it's not a favor. You don't have to thank me. I'm not the one who helped you. Take out all the vitality stones in the city. I'm going to set up a great formation outside the city to wait for the marine race. Young Master Feiyang, you're a formation master? Ji Zhengxiang asked in delight. Yunxiao nodded. I know a little. I can also repair the teleportation arrays in the city. Ji Zhengxiang was overjoyed. He suddenly felt as if he had seen boundless light from the darkness. He hastily offered the dragon crystal with both hands and said respectfully, all manpower and resources in the city will be under the command of young Master Feiyang. Yunxiao put away the dragon crystal without any hesitation. Suddenly, a deafening roar came from outside. It was the unconscious Ruan Shichuan who suddenly got up. His whole body was black, and he turned into a ray of light and rushed over. Li Feiyang, I'm going to kill you. Just now, he had been knocked unconscious by the tremendous power of the thunderbolt. The first thing he did after waking up was to seek revenge from Yunxiao. He did not expect the other party to be stronger than him, so he thought it was the hammer. A cold gleam flickered in Yunxiao's eyes. A hammer appeared in his hand, and he raised it high and was about to slam it down. Ruan Shichuan was shocked and quickly stopped. He stomped his feet and instantly turned into several afterimages. It was difficult to distinguish the real from the fake as they rushed forward from different directions. A sneer appeared at the corner of Yunxiao's mouth as he disappeared from where he was. In the next moment, he appeared directly above Ruan Shichuan's real body and smashed down with his hammer. Boom! A bolt of lightning struck down from the hammer, and the other end of the hammer shot up into the sky, blasting away the remaining ruins of the hall. Bang! Ruan Shichuan crashed into the ground without a doubt, creating a bottomless pit on the ground. Everyone retreated in shock. At this moment, Gan Wuqin and the others completely shut their mouths and put away any signs of resistance. If Yunxiao had used an opportunistic move to send Ruan Shichuan flying earlier, then this was a completely head-on fight, and he had sent a 6-stars martial emperor flying with one move. No wonder Liao Yongbing had been so respectful to this man. It turned out that he had known Yunxiao's strength for a long time. It also made sense that the Warblade team had remained unscathed. Gan Wuqin was filled with regret. He cursed himself for being so stupid. He didn't even see through such a huge flaw, and he still stood against this man. He had almost fallen into the abyss of eternal damnation. Fortunately, this man was magnanimous and didn't hold it against them. Otherwise, a single hammer strike would have wiped out an entire team. Lord Yangbing, I'll leave Ruan Shichuan to you, Yunxiao said. I hope he will listen to me and cooperate with the defense of the city. Otherwise, I'll kill him. It was better not to have a disobedient martial emperor. Otherwise, it would be a great hidden danger if he had disloyalty. Liao Yangbing nodded heavily. Although he didn't want to stay to defend the city, he would do his best since he had already decided. He turned to Liang Yuanji and Gan Wuqin and said, all of you, go patrol the area and find the other team as soon as possible. The city lord will send people to monitor the movements of the sea and report immediately if there is a situation. Yes. Let's go. The crowd shouted in unison, and the entire White Rush city surrounded Yunxiao.